What happens when your needs are not met as a child? They don't disappear. They don't get erased with time. They don't quietly resolve just because you learned how to function. They stay beneath the surface, shaping how you relate, how you attach, how you protect yourself. And over time, they stop feeling like wounds. They start feeling like who you are. So today we're not just naming patterns, we're understanding the depth of them, where they come from, how they live inside you, and how they quietly influence your life. Overgiving to everyone else. You don't just give, you stretch yourself beyond your limits, often without even realizing when you crossed them. You anticipate needs before they are voiced. You fill gaps that were never yours to fill, and you keep showing up long after you feel depleted. At a deeper level, this isn't just generosity, it is a learned way of securing connection. When you were younger, being helpful, agreeable, or easy may have been the safest way to receive approval or avoid rejection. So now, your giving is tied to your sense of worth. Rest can feel undeserved, pulling back can feel failure, struggling to set boundaries. There is often a quiet awareness within you of what feels right and what doesn't, but translating that into action feels almost impossible. Your body hesitates, your voice softens, your words reshape themselves to sound less firm, less final. Because boundaries at some point may not have been respected, or worse, they may have been met with anger, guilt, or withdrawal. So your system learned to associate boundaries with loss. Now, even when you need space, your instinct is to preserve connection at your own expense. Feeling guilty for having needs. Your needs rarely feel simple. They feel heavy, complicated, something that requires justification. You may delay expressing them, minimize them, or convince yourself they don't matter. This often stems from a time when your needs were overlooked or treated as an inconvenience. Over time, you internalize the idea that needing something from others was asking for too much. And so now, even the most basic emotional needs come with an undercurrent of guilt. Accepting crumbs and calling it love. You find yourself holding on to small moments, brief attention, occasional effort, inconsistent presence, and stretching them into something meaningful. You tell yourself to be patient, to understand, to not expect too much, because when love was inconsistent, your heart adapted to that rhythm. It learned to find comfort in unpredictability. So now stability may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, while inconsistency feels strangely like home. Fearing being too much. You move through the world with a quiet self awareness that borders on self censorship. You think before you speak, soften your emotions, hold back your reactions, because at some point, your natural expression, your feelings, your needs, your voice was met with discomfort or rejection. So you learned to take up less space, to make yourself easier to handle, to become someone who doesn't overwhelm, suppressing emotions to keep the peace. You feel things deeply, but you've learned how to tuck them away. You redirect, distract, or silence yourself before your emotions fully surface, because expressing them once disrupted the environment around you. Maybe it led to conflict, withdrawal, or tension that felt unsafe. So now you equate silence with stability, even when it costs you your authenticity. Feeling safest when self sufficient. You have built a life where you can depend on yourself, and while that is strength, it is also protection. You hesitate to lean on others, not because you don't need support, but because needing has never felt entirely safe. When support was inconsistent or absent, you learned to meet your own needs. Over time, this became your default. Now, even when help is available, trusting it feels unfamiliar. Believing love must be earned, not received. There is an ongoing effort in how you show up. You try, adjust, improve, give, believing that love is something that must be maintained through action, because love at one point may have been tied to performance. You received it when you behaved a certain way, achieved something, or made things easier for others. So now you don't just receive love, you work for it. Looking for validation instead of partnership. In relationships, there is often a quiet scanning, looking for signs, reassurance, confirmation that you matter. Even when things are going well, a part of you remains alert because you were not consistently affirmed. So now, instead of resting in connection, you seek evidence of it again and again, trying to fill a space that was left empty for too long, over explaining yourself to feel understood. You don't just communicate, you elaborate, clarify, and expand, trying to cover every possible angle. Because being misunderstood once felt deeply unsettling. It may have left you feeling unseen or invalidated. So now you try to control that outcome by saying more, explaining more, hoping that this time you will be fully understood. Feeling responsible for other people's emotions. You are highly attuned to the emotional states of others. You notice shifts in tone, mood, energy, and you adjust yourself accordingly because you once had to. Your environment may have required you to stay aware, to prevent conflict, to maintain balance. Over time, this turned into a belief that it is your role to manage what others feel. Choosing caretaker roles in every relationship. You naturally step into the role of the one who gives, supports, and holds space. And while it may feel familiar, it often leaves little room for your own needs because your value was once reinforced through how much you could offer. Being needed became synonymous with being important. So now you gravitate toward roles where you are the giver, even when it leaves you unseen. Apologizing even when you did nothing wrong. Apologies come quickly, almost instinctively. They soften situations, prevent tension, and create a sense of control. Because at some point, taking responsibility, even when it wasn't yours, kept things from escalating. So now apologizing feels safer than questioning whether the blame was ever yours to carry. Holding on even as the other person's effort fades. You stay longer than you should. You remember the beginning, hold on to potential, and hope for change. Because inconsistency feels familiar. Your system has learned to wait, to adapt, to endure, rather than to leave when something no longer meets you. Putting everyone else first and neglecting yourself. You show up for others with care and consistency, but when it comes to yourself, there is hesitation. Your needs are delayed, minimized, or overlooked because you were never taught that you deserve the same level of care. So, prioritizing yourself can feel unnatural, even uncomfortable. Avoiding conflict due to fear of abandonment. You avoid difficult conversations, Soften your truth or stay silent altogether, because conflict once threatened your sense of safety. It may have led to emotional distance or withdrawal, so now you associate disagreement with the risk of losing connection, interpreting any attention as deep interest. Small gestures can feel significant. A message, a moment, a bit of attention, it lingers because attention was once limited, and your heart learned to hold on to whatever it received, assigning it meaning in the absence of consistency. These patterns are not just thoughts, they are held in the body, repeated through the nervous system, lived out in quiet, automatic ways. Let's make a dua together. Ya Allah, you know the parts of us that learn to survive in silence. You see the patterns we carry, the weight we hold, the ways we learn to adapt when our needs were not met. Grant us the awareness to recognize what no longer serves us. Grant us the courage to soften where we have hardened. Teach us that we are worthy of love that is steady, kind, and freely given. Help us release the guilt of having needs, the fear of being too much, and the habit of abandoning ourselves to be accepted. And where we were not nurtured with care and gentleness, nurture us now with your mercy. Amen.